Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Kidushin Daf Samach Aleph. Begin on the bottom, the last few words in Daf Samach Mebez, where the Gemara continues in a related discussion of our Mishnah. We had mentioned that if someone says, "Well, you can be engaged to me on the condition that I have, or I show you a base core offer," so related to that, about what's considered a base core of offer, and also relating back to the concept we mentioned at the end of the previous Daf, also of Anot Terachna, my sin, don't worry, I'm gonna do the effort, I'm gonna bring it. Which the Gemara actually said that that's not good enough for a certain case. We're gonna see actually that will be valid in a certain case. Just because man bekazach and chesed to him dafachaim, Hashem join today's daf shpiyaschus v'chein b'nei Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. So this is discussed in today's daf are nekoim b'salam regarding when, let's say you're discussing a certain area of land, let's say regarding hektish or a sale, or in our context of our parak of our Mishnah regarding that of Kidushin, what do we do with clefts and regarding rocks? Do we consider that as part of the area or not? The next Mishnah discusses when we're talking about conditions, which we were speaking about in the previous Mishnayos, where almanas, that to compare it to the biblical narrative, the model of Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven, when Moshe Rabbeinu made a condition with them, there was certain criterion that was made that had to be a valid condition. Some of those are the halach of t'nai kafel, that you have to double up the condition. If yes, yes. If not, not. T'nai koim lamaisa, you have to have the condition before the action. And you say, if this, then that, not that and if. Hein koim lalav, and also yes before no. You say, if this, then yes, and then if not, not. Those are three of the conditions that we say specifically regarding the t'nai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. To begin the current daf, the last few words in Daf Samach Mebez, the Gemara brings the context of a halacha in two different contexts, and then it's going to ask what the halacha is going to be regarding Kidushin. So first of all, regarding the laws of hektish, we learn the Mishnah and Erech, and as we continue top of Samach Aleph and Aleph. Hamaktish Sadeyu B'Shas HaYevel. At a time when the halacha of Yevel applies, where a person's ste'achuza, his ancestral field, its redemption has an equal amount from Exeris HaKasav, whether it's a good quality field, a poor quality, it doesn't make a difference. As the Mishnah is going to describe right now, it always has the same halacha, because in contrast, when Yevel doesn't apply, then it just gets redeemed based on its monetary value. But at a time when Yevel applies, says the Mishnah, Noisin bezera chomer sa'arim. You give for an amount of land that could be planted a kur, chomer is a kur of barley, so that area is redeemed for 50 shekel kesef, 50 silver skull. Okay, that's a general halacha. It continues the Mishnah, if there were these ditches, like these pits, that are mukam asar tvachim, 10 handbreadths deep, or the other direction, slum gevayim asar tvachim, rocky areas in the land that are 10 tvachim high, inim dadmima, it does not get measured with the rest of the field, which Tosfos brings from Rashi, meaning to be redeemed in this halacha of a chaymer of sa'irim, of 50 silver shkalim. But to be redeemed in its monetary value, that says Tosfos most definitely it is going to be sanctified. But in this unique halacha of the Exeris HaKasav of a chaymer sa'irim, which is meaning 50 shkalim of how much area you can plant a core of barley, that these areas will not be measured with the rest of the land. Now, Achas Mekan, if it's less than 10 tefachim in the depth or the height, then it will be measured with it. So the Gemara says like this. That's the Mishnah in Erechim. But we asked the although you're right, with the rest of the land, it's not going to be sanctified to be measured with what's there, and you're not going to count the slope in the cheshbon of the category of the field, meaning to be as part of it because it's a different area. But in the kachabap and nafshayu, why don't you go ahead and sanctify it on its own, as its own area, without the slope, and even though it's not usable with the rest of the field, but it should be at least on its own considered as a ste'achuza, and why whatever proportionate to that amount should also be evaluated. And if you're going to say have a base korle chashiv, no, because the ditches or the rocky heights, they're not an area of a base core, so it's not significant, and therefore we're not going to say proportionally, we're not going to go ahead and give it this gezeres hakasiv of proportion to 50 silver shkolim, but Verminu seems to be contradictory in the following brisa. The brisa says, Sada matam alema. Why does the pasuk use the word sada? It should have written v'im me'achuzasai. It doesn't have to say v'im misteachuzasai. Say v'im achuzasai yakdashish, and then it's going to tell us this halacha. Why say the word sada? Because it says in the pasuk in Vayikra zera chaymes ayrim, where it could be planted a core of barley. Now, bechamishim. Now, so it says that's what's going to be 50 silver shkal. So, ainly says the Bryce, right? I would only know El Shekdish ben Yazeh. If you sanctified in that way, that it's exactly a zera of chaymer of sa'ir. And then l'rabes lasach, how do you not include even a half a core, or v'chatzi lasach, half of that half, or sa'ah, which is half of that, or tarkiv, which is half of a sa'ah, or v'chatzi tarkiv, or half of that, or v'afil, how do you know even a quarter of a kav? How do you know all these areas will also have this halacha proportionately of the halacha of this Kseiser Kasev? Tamalim is sada. That's why I use the word sada, field, mekamalkum, whatever the field is. So you see clearly that the halacha would be even no matter how small it is. So back to the question on that Mishnah Erechim. Why are we saying that the Nikoim or the Slum are not Nimdad Nimah? Fine, but they should be measured on their own, even though they're small. So Maruk Vachama says, we're talking about where the ditches are filled with water, that they cannot be planted at all. And the pasuk says, zera, something that cannot be planted is not redeemed with these monies, rather with its monetary value, because not zera, chaymes ayrim, and says the Gemara Deganami. Precise reading of that Mishnah in Erechim indicates is the Gediktani. What does it say? There's two cases, Nekoim and Sloim, where generally a sela, not as a coin sela, but as in rocks, not fit for planting. It's very hard. You see that the reason why it's not going to have this halach of the Gzeres HaKasev is because not zera cannot be planted, just like the Siloim is rocky, cannot plant it. So too, this big ditch cannot be planted because it's filled with water. It says, if that's the case, then even if it's less than 10 tfachim, then it should also have the same halacha of not being redeemed with the Gzeres HaKasev because it's filled with water. If it's less than 10 tfachim, so these clefts are nogni da'aram mikru. They're called the basins of the land, where the water just gathers inside of it. As we find the pasuk Yasim Ba'gonis. It's like, and so to the place of where the rocks are. So that's shidra da'aram mikru. It's called the spine of the land. Meaning it doesn't have its own title of slum. It's part of the land because it's less than 10 tfachim. When you're less than 10 tfachim, you still consider it part of the primary area. And if that wouldn't make it into a distinct area to give it a separate halacha, but it's 10 tfachim, then it's already separate rishos. And then we're saying if it's filled with water or like the rocky terrain, then it's not going to have the halacha of the Gzeres HaKasev. Now, this is only the context of hektish. Now, regarding mecher, Gabi mecher, tonight we learned in the Mishnah Baba Basra. Same halacha, meaning the case is the same. Someone says to his friend, also, same area of offer I'm going to sell to you. There were these ditches. They were 10 tvachim deep. This rocky terrain 10 tvachim high. Says the Mishnah, they're not measured together with this land that he's selling him. Less than 10 tvachim, okay, it's measured with, it's part of the area of land that he said he's going to sell. He says here it's not going to combine even if it's not filled with water, not like we said by hektish. What's the reason why even if it's not with water are we going to say it's not going to count? Person doesn't want to give money where he thought it was going to be one field. It's going to look like 2 or 3 different places. Because if you have these ditches 10 tfachim deep or 10 tfachim high of rocky terrain, it looks like different areas. So even if it's not filled with water, he wouldn't be willing, and if it's not going to be a valid sale. It says Gemara, hachabmai. What's the halacha over here by Kidushin of a woman? If this, like we said in the Mishnah, then I'm going to give you a core of offer. if there was the slum on the koim of 10 tvachim, not filled with water, what's the halacha going to be in the context of Kidushin? What's the question? So the Gemara explains. On the one hand, do you say lehektish medabinla? That we're going to compare it to hektish, which we said that if it's not filled with water, it is measured with it. Or lemech medabinla, or we're going to compare it to a sail, which we said even if it's not filled with water, it's not going to be measured with it. So Gemara mistab, it's logical lehektish medabinla. We compare it to hektish because the Amallah, he says to her, "Anotarachna bezarano meisina." Don't worry that there's these ditches 10 tvachim deep. It's part of the core of offer I'm giving you. Because I'm going to go through the effort, I'm going to plant it, I'm going to bring it from deep down, and therefore why should she care? It's not like a mecher, and therefore it's going to be more like the halach of hektish. If it's not filled with water, it will be a valid kiddush. Now the Gemara continues with the halach of the next Mishnah, qualifying the previous Mishnah that we spoke about Tanoim, about conditions in Kiddushin. So this is a general halacha of the proper formulation of a Tanai. The Meir says, "Kol Tanai she'enoi," any condition that's not doubled. Ketanai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven, like the condition that Moshe Rabbeinu made with the tribe of God and the tribe of Reuven in the Tanai, is not going to be considered as a valid condition. So even if the condition is not fulfilled, the words that were promised still have to be fulfilled. For example, if he tells her, "This is your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz," and he does not specify the opposite. If you don't give me, it will not be a get. Then there's no halachic requirement of the obligation of the 200 zuz at all. And even if she doesn't give him, it's going to be a get. As we find that Moshe Rabbeinu had to go ahead and repeat himself. Like it says in Pasuk Memidbar. It says, and he said to them, if the tribe of Gad and Reuben go, and they cross over and they fight the war in Eretz Yisrael, then they'll get. But then said after that, if they don't go all fortified with you and take possession, then they're not going to get. So we see from that if it's not doubled, the gift that he was giving them would be valid, and they would still get in the Eretz of Gilad, even if they don't pass over the Jordan, even though he told them, if you're going to go, you're going to get it. We don't say what's called Mechlal Hena Tishmei Alav. Okay, I only said if yes, which that would obviously sound like if not, not. No, we don't say that. Because with all the previous Mishnahs, we talk about conditions for the halacha of Kiddushin. I'm going to ask this, I'm going to ask that. So we're saying, good question. Sometimes when they introduce a topic, then they go and they qualify it afterwards. Meaning, if you would just introduce it, you'd say, why are we talking about, you would ask the question, why are we talking about tonight? Just first we explain, we did, and then we explain, then we qualify. But the same thing is that there's other things we need also. Besides needing this halacha of Tanai Kafel, we also need to have what's called Tanai Koim Lamaisa, that you have to say the condition before the action. Because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't tell them, give them if they pass by. Sounds like if he would have said that, then the Tanai would not come along and be Mevatel the Maisa anymore, because the Matana was already said first. And we also learn that you need to have what's called Hen Koim Lalav. Yes before no. He didn't first say, if you guys don't go, you're not going to get it, and if you go, you're going to get it. So there's three halachas that we learn out. We learn out it has to be doubled, it has to be Tanai Koim Lamaisa, and it also has to be Hein Koidim Lalav. That's what Remeir says. However, he says, and as Rashi points out, he's only disagreeing on the halach of Tanai Kafel. To say that you don't have to say the inverse, because he holds Mechlal Hein Nishmalav. From what you say yes, you infer what's not. So why are you doubling it then? Meaning, Remeir was bringing a pashta raya from the pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu says if yes, yes, and then he said if not, not. Why do you, according to B'chanim, why do you say if not, not? He says, and this gets a little bit complex in the Mishnah and in the Gemara. It says, Tzarich hadavar la'amrei. This had to be said for a different reason, if not, not. Why? Shel Mali Kain, because if Moshe Rabbeinu had not repeated himself, yesh b'mashma, you would understand that if they wouldn't go and cross over the Jordan to fight with the rest of the Jewish people, shafila be'eretz Canaan, that even in the land of Canaan, meaning over the Jordan and onwards, which Rashi says, Tais disagrees, but that they were disgusted with it. I mean, they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael proper because they had a lot of animals. They wanted to stay on the other side of the Jordan. So we would have thought to say, if they were not going to go ahead and fight, that even in Eretz Canaan, lo yinchalu, that they would not inherit if they wouldn't go and fight. Because we would have understood like this. If you're going to cross over the Jordan, you're going to get Eretz Gilad, the whole Eretz Gilad. Only they got it. The rest of Klal Yisrael didn't take over there because of all their portion. But we would have understood if they're not going to cross over, they're going to penalize, and they're not going to take a portion, not here nor there. Not in Eretz Gilad, which they were only getting because they were crossing over and fighting, and not even in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu had to specify, no, if you don't cross over, you're not going to lose your portion, meaning you'll take like everyone else here and there. But of course, we would know that you're only going to get this if you fight, because that's what you're saying. If you do, then you get. If not, we don't have to tell you if not. That we know. But we just had to tell you that the second half of the pasuk, we have to tell you, if you don't go, you're still going to get B'neiches B'seichem Eretz Canaan. You're still going to get an Eretz Canaan, because I would have thought to say you're not going to get even anywhere, because you didn't want Eretz Yisrael, and you're not getting Eretz Gilad either. So that's why you have to repeat yourself, but not because in general you have to repeat yourself. That's the machlekes between Rameir and Chanina ben Gamliel. What? Yeah, I don't want to get it's complicated, but I'm saying, but that's how Rashi says it. So the Gemara asks that how does Rameir learn from this that you could see Tanai Kafel, but but you see that he had a good taina. He says the reason why we repeated ourselves was not to repeat ourselves, was that they shouldn't take in the entire Eretz Gilad, because you would know it from the inference. It's just to say, like we said, B'neichzub Eretz Canaan, that even if you don't go and you fight, you'll still get like everyone else. So how's Rameir proving from here the halacha of Tanai Kafel? So Rameir said, no, it's not true. If you think to say that the pasuk is coming to explain that even you don't pass over, they're not going to lose that portion in the entire Eretz Yisrael, the way Rabbi is saying that lav l'tnai kavalu da asa, that's not coming to teach me that you have to repeat the condition to strengthen the t'nai, that if you don't go, you're not going to get the gift of Eretz Gilad as a gift, and to tell us that Mechlal Hein, you don't say lav, meaning if it's like Rabbi Gamliel essentially, then I have the following question. Lichtav, it should have written, Ve'im lo yavru, if they don't cross over, they're going to take possession amongst you. Of course, I would explain what that means is, if they don't cross over, they're not going to lose. That's what's coming to teach us. The question is, the words Be'eretz Canaan, as you get into Beis Lamali. Why do you need the words in the lands of Canaan? What does that mean? So Rashi explains, because that sounds like a miyut, coming to exclude that they're not going to take in the Eretz of Gilad opposite their portion in Eretz Canaan. But if all it's coming to tell me, like you, is that, I would have just thought they're not going to get anything. They're not going to get, so just say, no, they will get, which, they're going to take amongst you, which that means wherever that is, in Eretz Gilad, and Eretz Canaan, just like everyone else. Why do you have to say the words, Besechem Eretz Canaan? That sounds like it's excluding Eretz Gilad. Shmamina, l'tnai kavul da asa, said Meir. Obviously, you had to go and repeat it and to say, if they don't cross over, then what my gift that I gave them is not going to be valid. Because had he not repeated himself, it would have been a valid gift. Because from Machlal Hen, from what I say yes, you don't say no. I would have thought to say, the reason why I had to say Eretz Canaan was because, yes, I had to exclude Eretz Gilad, because I would have thought to say that actually, if I was just a B'neiches B'seichem, okay, fine, that would teach you halacha that we would have thought they get nothing. No, they're going to get. Why do you have to say Eretz Canaan? Say, because if you don't cross over, you're going to get an Eretz Canaan, but you will not get Eretz Gilad. But of course you're not going to get Eretz Gilad. You're not crossing over and fighting. Yeah, but I have to say both ways. I have to say it's T'nai Kafel. I didn't say this, Vem lo yavru, with the meat of Eretz Gilad, I would have thought to say you'd still get Eretz Gilad. Because you do have to do it tonight kafel. That's Remeir's Raya, as it's a little bit falling the points. That's Remeir's Raya, which I'm interested in the taste, but when I can talk about the generals, and it's very appropriate for these times in the fighting the war. Who has to go? Rosh HaTzavah, they have to be the first ones in the war. Whatever, it's very interesting cases and whatever for the wars that are going on now. But that's Remeir's Raya. If according to the Maskana, everyone agrees that we would have thought that if they wouldn't fight, we would have thought, let's say, they're not going to get anything. But Remeir is saying, if that's all the pasuk is teaching me, that I have to tell you that if you're not going to go, that you're not going to get, I'm going to say, don't worry, you will get, you just won't get Eretz Gilad. Meaning, when I say Eretz Gilad, is the entire Eretz Gilad? No, right, and there's the portion, no, because but they would get the whole Gilad. Right. Yes, everyone would get. Right. Well, it depends. It's not so clear because he could be meaning what I'm being Mamai and Eretz Gilad is getting. Yeah, he says I think what that means to say is instead of getting Eretz Canaan, you will get the whole Eretz Gilad, and that's saying that you're not getting that. And what I have to exclude? Of course, you're not getting that. That's just saying that because I would have thought you are going to get the Eretz Gilad, even though you're not crossing over. Now, but Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg Amar, he responds. He would tell you that no, it's not coming to make a Tanai kafel. It's coming to explain that even if they don't cross over, they're not going to lose their inheritance from the whole Eretz Yisrael. Because your whole time the Remeir was, the way you're proving the halach of Tanai kafel is, oh, you agreed to me what I was saying, that it has to repeat it because or else you would have thought you don't get everything. But your right is from the words Be'eretz Canaan. That's a miyat to say, but not Eretz Gilad. It's not true. Had we not said Eretz Canaan, it says we need it, not for the kafel shabai, because had we not said Eretz Canaan Habamina, I would have thought to say that when it says in the Torah, if they're not going to cross over and fight, that the pasuk tells us that they're going to take a possession amongst the rest of Klal Yisrael. I would think to say what that means to say is they're going to take according to what is coming to them, but Eretz Gilad. Only in Eretz Gilad, which they already had taken possession already before Klal Yisrael even ever crossed over, and they helped them to conquer it. Of Eretz Canaan, but the land of, they only get a portion with everyone else only in Eretz Gilad. Of Eretz Canaan, Kalal Loy, but I would say, but in Eretz Canaan, they won't take any portion inside of it, and not in Eretz Gilad correlating like a transfer for what they really should get in Eretz Yisrael. So I would have thought that they get no rights in Eretz Yisrael, meaning not even as a 12th. Therefore, it says Eretz Canaan to say that no, even Eretz Canaan they're going to take, even though they didn't assist to conquer. But to exclude that they're not going to take an Eretz Gilad connected everyone else's portion, like Remeir said, no, that I don't need, because Machlal Hen, I would have known none. Of course, if you told me that you're going to go and fight, you're going to get, of course I know if you're not going to go, you're not going to get. You don't need a Tanai kafel. The reason why I said Eretz Canaan was to say that even if they don't go fight, they will get a portion. Eretz Canaan, just like everyone else. But a mayor, but he would tell you, no, it's not true, because Eretz Canaan is extra for my meat. Because b'seichem amongst you, which the pasuk already says, means kol echad esluchu mashma, wherever Klal Yisrael has, and they have amongst them. So therefore, obviously, the reason why it said be'eretz Canaan must be to be an exclusion of Eretz Gilad, to say they don't take the whole thing based on the gift that he had said to them, b'nesatam lahem, to teach us that because just by saying yes, I would not know. No, and if I have to say both yes and no, which is halacha of Tanai kafel. A little bit complex, a little fine the point. Regarding this halacha of Tanai kafel. Now, Tanya learned the Braysom. This man the Amar who disagrees and holds that you don't need Tanai kafel, he says mashal, what you compare this, what was by Moshe Rabbeinu, What could this be compared to? So a person that was giving out portions to his sons. Amar says, Pliny, B'ni, that one, my son, Yiddish other planes will inherit that field. Upliny Banai, and that person, my son, Yiddish other planes, he'll inherit that field. Upliny Banai, Yitin Masayim Zuz, and that son will inherit 200, should be given 200 zuz. Yiddish other planes, and he'll inherit that field. Now, meaning he should give, meaning that son should give 200 zuz, and he'll inherit that field. And if he doesn't give 200 zuz, okay, then he'll inherit with the rest of his brothers with the rest of the assets. Meaning, like Rashi explains the mashal, so to the other tribes, they took an Eretz Canaan, and you have two tribes that if they cross over the Jordan and they fight the war, which is similar to giving 200 zuz, then they'll take Eretz Gilad. But if they're not going to cross over and fight, they're not going to lose that portion of Eretz Canaan, which is Shar Nechasim. So therefore, that would be the mashal of Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel explaining what was there by Moshe Rabbeinu, which is who caused that he should inherit with the rest of his brothers, with the rest of the estate. It's the repetition, meaning because if he wouldn't repeat, I would hear that if he doesn't give, he will take in that field according to the portion that's coming to him. But in the two fields that I set for his brothers, meaning that he will not take at all. It's a little bit of complex mashal also, because we're saying that the brothers, one brother got this field, one brother got this field, and then this third brother, we said he'll get his field if he gives 200 zuz. If he doesn't, he'll divide with the rest of the brothers with the Shar Nechasim. So that's what Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel is trying to explain, that what caused him to inherit with the rest of his brothers the Shar Nechasim is the repetition. Because if he would not repeat himself, that because that's what he said. He says, and this guy will get if he gives, and then he says, and if he will not give, then he'll inherit with the rest of his brothers the Shar Nechasim. If he had not repeated this condition in the yes and in the no, I would have heard that if he doesn't give the 200 zuz, he'll take in that field according to the portion how much is coming to him as one of the sons. But those two other fields that he said for the brothers, that he won't take at all. And for sure he won't take in that field itself that he's supposed to get, keneged the other nechasim. So that's exactly what was by Bnei Gad Bnei Reuven. That the doubling was what caused them to take a portion of their chelik and Eretz Canaan. Because had he not doubled it, I would have said that they don't take there anything at all. Only in Eretz Gilad, according to what is coming to them of like a 12th of as being one of the Shvatim. That's the mashal that he's giving to describe exactly this halacha. It's only because he repeated himself. Remember, Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel holds that the reason why he repeated was not because of T'nai Kafel. You don't need T'nai Kafel. He just repeated himself to let you know that if he doesn't give the 200 zuz as the mashal, or if it doesn't cross over the Jordan, what's going to happen? Then they'll be with Shar Nechasim. He'll get what the other brothers have. They won't get what they'll get, meaning the old share now equally. He'll get a portion, but he won't get his own that own field, which is what he wants from Gilad. But he will get in Eretz Canaan. He will get from the rest of the Nechasim, which he wouldn't have gotten had he not repeated. I would have thought, okay, if you give them money, you get your field. You don't give anything. So therefore, that's why you have to repeat it. That was, again, that's Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel explaining his opinion. But the Gemara says, wait a second, it's not true. The mashal is not the same as the halacha of the Mishnah. Why? Hasam over there in the Mishnah, Katani, we teach that if he doesn't repeat himself, yesh b'mashma, there's an understanding, shafila be'eretz kanan lo yinchalu, that even the words, if you looked at the words in the Mishnah, were even the land of Canaan they will not inherit. So you see, kfeila, this that Moshe Rabbeinu repeat himself was Eretz Gilad nami mahani, was effective also for the land of Gilad. Meaning, it's coming to tell us that they wouldn't have taken anything, not here nor there, because the words were af. The dik is on the words af be'eretz Canaan, which was not dear to them. They're not going to take. So the fact that it says the word af, it sounds like that for sure in Eretz Gilad, which they chose, they would not have taken the portion. Now, that's how the Mishnah says it in Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel's opinion. Problem is, here in the Bryce, when it's talking about the mashal, what does it say? Who caused that this third brother should inherit with his brothers by the other estates that they were getting? It's the repetition of saying, okay, if he doesn't give the 200 zuz, then he'll be sharing with the rest with his brothers b'shar nechasim. But Amo that we see that the kfela, the repetition, is l'shar nechasim the gemani, is helping for the other nechasim. Obviously, it's not effective only in Eretz Canaan, that without repeating yourself, that they would have taken at least what is coming to them in Eretz Gilad. That's what the mashal sounds like. That for Shar Nechasim, it's going to help the fact that the father repeated himself. If you don't give it to him, he'll share with his brother with Shar Nechasim. But it sounds like this third field he would get had he not repeated. But that doesn't sound like the words of the Mishnah. The words of the Mishnah sound like even Eretz Canaan, but it sounds like for sure in Eretz Gilad. Eretz Gilad is that third field. Sounds like you wouldn't have gotten anything. So that's not precise in the mashal. Says the Gemara, a finer point also, loy kash, it's not difficult. The Mishnah that said the word sha'af, which sounds like that if this father had not repeated himself, Moshe, again, it gets confused, the Moshe and the Nimshal, but that would have sounded like that not only would the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuben not had in Eretz Yisrael, that for sure they wouldn't have had in Eretz Gilad. That's Mikmei Denemele Remei. That's before Remei responded to him and said, wait a second, if it's like you, then it should have just written V'noichazu. And it didn't have to say the word Eretz Canaan. Remember, we spoke about this before in the Gemara. Remei responded. And we asked, how did Remei approve over here tonight? Kafel? Doesn't Rabbi Shloimy the Mishnah have a good taina? So we brought up Bryce that says, yes, Remei responds. He says, of course. But then why does it have to say word Eretz Canaan? So Reb Chanina thought that that Remeir is teaching this whole thing for the halach of Tanai Kafel. So therefore he told them that if it wouldn't be that he repeated his words, then you would understand that even in Eretz Canaan they wouldn't take, and for sure what was dear to them, because Mechlal Hen, from what I say yes, I understand not. If they don't go, it's not going to be given to them as Eretz Gilad. And Mela and Eretz Canaan they wouldn't take because they didn't go to conquer it. That's what was in the Mishnah. You're right. At that point in the Mishnah, before Remeir responded, that he said, okay, according to you, why say B'neichazu? Why say Eretz Canaan? Just say B'neichazu. Before he said that, he thought that he said that you would think that you wouldn't get anything. But this, however, in the Brisa that says that as the mashal, that the repetition is only for Eretz Canaan, as we were just medayik before, and that Reb Chanina said, "Labasar the name of Reb Meir b'neichazu." After Reb Meir said his answer of b'neichazu, that he said, "Why do you need the words Eretz Canaan?" And that Reb Chanina said to him, "That to take a portion in Eretz Canaan, it's helpful that because if you had not written Eretz Canaan, I would have thought to say that if they don't fight, that they're going to take a portion amongst you, would be only Be'eretz Gilad." And that's the chiddush to say that it says Be'eretz Canaan, to say even in Eretz Canaan. So yes, at that point his response is saying, like the mashal, that if this son doesn't give the 200 zuz, if he doesn't go and fight, then he won't get B'shar Nechasim. Meaning, I'm telling you that they will get, but I would have thought to say not. That's the chiddush. But Eretz Gilad at that point, you already know because it says B'seichem. B'seichem would have meant Gilad. I don't need the mashal to tell you that anymore. So it's not a contradiction. Depends at what point, what phase in their discussion was he talking about, if the chiddush is in everything or the chiddush is only in Eretz Canaan. That's the resolution of that contradiction. Now the Gemara starts an interesting conversation until the next Mishnah. That we have a machlokes between Reb Meir and Reb Chanina ben Gamliel regarding, do you always have to make it tonight kafel, which is a huge machlokes, obviously. Does every condition need to be if yes, yes, if not, not? Or no, obviously when I'm saying yes, yes, then I know not, not. We can ask from many places in the Torah that seem to indicate if you have to have a tonight kafel or not. Starting all the way back in the beginning of the Torah, in this week's parsha. Bishlam Reb Meir, we understand according to Reb Meir. Hindach Siv, this is what it says with Cain and Hevel. It says in the pasuk that after Cain killed Hevel, it says Imtativ Seis. that look, if you do good, that you'll carry reward. If you're not going to do good, then to the opening, sin is crouching, meaning punishment is prepared to come. Obviously, you have to repeat yourself, because if you don't repeat, from the fact that you said that if you're going to do good, then you're going to carry reward. Obviously, I know that if you don't do good, because I would have thought that then I would know that even if you don't do good, you're going to carry reward, because a condition that wasn't repeated is not mevatel the matana. So according to me, it makes sense why you have to repeat it. Because had I not repeated, I would have thought, say, okay, you're still going to get the reward. But according to Rabbi Chanina, of course, I know that if you're not going to do good, that you're not going to get reward, because that's the inference. If you do good, you get reward. So why does it repeat itself that if yes and if not? Says Gemara, no, it's not true. So you would have thought to say, im teitiv agra. If you do good, you get reward. Im loy teitiv, if you don't do good, lo agra b'loy dina. You don't get reward, but you don't get judgment. In other words, that from the inference, I would not have known only that you just don't get a gift. But if you don't do good, I would know, okay, you're not going to get reward. But I would say you also don't get punishment. Therefore, you have to repeat itself to say that no, not only do you not get reward, that you're going to get a punishment. So it's not difficult on Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Sigma continues. That says that you don't infer from yes to infer no. You have to repeat yourself. And that's what it says in Bereshis, Perek Daled, with Elazar and Avram Avinu, where it says, "Oz tinaka me'alasi." Then you're going to be freed. You're going to be clean from my oath, because he made him take an oath. He says that if you don't go to my father's household, then this oath is going to take effect on you, which was the isser of taking for my son a isha kananis. Which says whole conversation, the way Rashi learns it. But from the inference, we don't learn that if you go, it won't take effect. That's why you have to say, oh, ostinaka melasi. He repeats himself, where he says, okay, if yes, yes, and if not, not. But why do you have to explain, if you go, you're going to be freed from my oath? Obviously.
Yeah, like even in Krishma, and if no, and if you.
Right, so that's similar to what we said before, that we had to tell you the chiddush of punishment. Rabbi Shloimy would answer and say, what do you mean, it doesn't say punishment? That
if you don't.
In Krishma it says punishment by Mishmaya.
I'm sorry, it says reward.
It says you can get Matar Artzchem, it says reward and it says punishment. So it's both ways. Rabbi Shloimy holds that you would have to repeat yourself to tell you that you get punishment. But obviously that if he wouldn't have repeated himself, then it wouldn't have been mevatel its Sinai for the oath. That even if it's going to go, it's still going to take effect on him. Im yikach le'ishim leis kanan, which tells us a whole conversation in Rashi exactly how to understand this. But it sounds like that, and that's the question of Gamliel. It sounds like that Avram Avinu said, "Don't take leis kanan. Go back to where I lived back in Aram Naraim." So he says, "But if you go, then you'll be clean from my oath." That sounds like that had he not repeated himself, that even if he would go, he would still have the oath of not taking a wife from Bnei Canaan. But you see, not you have to repeat yourself. You have to say that if you don't, then you're going to have the oath, and if you do, then you won't. But you see, he had to repeat himself. So it's necessary, because you would have thought there's a where the woman is okay with the shidduch, but the family, the relatives, are not okay with it. You would have thought to say that you bring the woman against her will, against their will, against the relatives' wills. That's why you had to say this pasuk to make it dependent also on the relatives. If they're not going to give you the woman, even if she wants to go, then then you're going to be clean from this oath of that what I made you take. So it's not because you have to repeat yourself. It's simply because we wanted to tell you that regarding the refusal of the relatives, where the Gemara parenthetically asks, why does it have to say if the woman doesn't want to? Obviously, that if the woman doesn't want to, then you're not gonna be able to bring her back. So Itzach is necessary. So you would have thought to say where the family is okay with the shidduch, but the woman is not okay with it. You would have thought nice about Karcha, you bring her against her will. That's telling you that no, if she doesn't want or if they don't want, then don't bring her back again. But it wasn't necessary because of the repetition for the halach of Tanai Kaf. Think more continue. Bishlam Meir. One time called Reb Meir, and that says a pasuk in the Yikra. Similar to what like you were asking before. If you go on my statutes, then you get the brachas. If you discuss with my statutes, then you get punishment. Why do you have to repeat yourself? From the bracha, I could infer the klala. So that was necessary. So you would have thought if in my statute you're going to go is the bracha's blessing. If in my statute you're going to be discussing the bracha with like klala, you don't get blessing, but you don't get cursed. Kamashal to tell you that if you don't, you're going to get cursed. It says in Yeshaya. It says if you're going to want and you're going to listen to Hashem, etc. If you're going to refusing and you rebel, etc. You have to repeat because it's only because of kafel. Why do you have to go ahead and repeat yourself? It was necessary. So you would have thought Zim Taibu, if you want Taibu, it's going to be good. If you can refuse what Hashem is, you're not going to give not good, not bad. They will tell you that no, that you're also going to get the punishments. So the Gemara asks, what's over there in that pasuk that we just brought in Yeshaya, as we continue from some Bezim at Aleph, that cherev to uchlu, I guess it's very appropriate for the war that they're fighting now, swords, but they're going to consume swords. It sounds like that they're eating as of swords. What does that mean? So Merabi says it's milcha gilonisa. It's this thick, coarse salt, and nahama desardi akusha with hard barley bread, with tzali and onions. Why? Because the master says pas porni chareva, the bread, the dry bread of this large oven. The melech of betzalm with salt and onions, kasham laguv kecharavas, is harsh on the body like swords, and that's the reference of cherev tuchli. You can eat swords. That's part of the punishment if b'chukais demasu, b'shbezeicha taka should be b'chukais telechu, b'zeicha to see the flies and Yeshua in the bunch something to anything else.